Hello, welcome. You are listening to Dr. Sushma Singh. Today in Unit 30, Types of Social Movement, let us start our lecture with topic Polymorphy of Social Movements and the problem of classification. Social movements like social conflicts are not homogeneous phenomena. We have suggested above that the elements of conflict lie at the core of social movements. The range and variations in the types of social conflicts are bound, consequently, to give rise to different types of social movements in society. Social movements generally emerge as a response to some collectively shared social issues, questions, and challenges in a situation of conflict. The nature of social issues and conflict in a complex society like India vary by regions, caste, classes, communities, and by territorial groups like tribes, peasants, and urban communities. Readers can easily understand that seashore fishermen of Kerala may have type of issues and conflict entirely different from those of the mountain people of Himalaya in Uttarakhand. Consequently, different type of movements find their expressions in society. The polymorphous nature of movements need to be made amenable for scientific analysis. Codification and classification are essential methodological steps undertaken to make a range of complex and widely varied social phenomena such as social movements amenable to scientific inquiry and analysis. The classification of movements in different types are based on the principle of resemblance and differences. In what ways do different movements resemble and differ with each other? In the study of social movements, the problem of typology has been acute, suiting the theoretic or ideological preference of the scholar, and the same movement has in the writing of one scholar been characterized as peasant movement and in the other sectarian one. While it is simple to treat tribal uprising as tribal movement or women's protest against gender discrimination as women movements, it is far more difficult to separate reformative, restorative, and revivalist movement from other type of social movements, including tribal and women movements. Readers require for an illustration a case from Kathleen Guha System of Classification and Typology of Social Movement. Taking goals, ideology, and method of organization, Go represented a five-fold typology of peasant movements in India. The five-fold types are restorative rebellion, religious movement, social banditry, terrorist vengeance, and finally, and last is mass insurgence. We have critically examined the limitations of Guhu's classification. How could the revolt of Raja Jeet Singh and Waz Ali against the British could be included in the category of peasant movement? Similar problem is noticed in other studies, including those by historians who treat the mutiny of 1857 as the example of peasant uprising. The revolt of Rajas and the Wazirs cannot be treated as for equivalent of the peasant movement. What is therefore required is an objective method helpful in developing a workable classification and typology of different types of social movements in India. Before we discuss the theme on the types of movement, it would be beneficial to acquaint the readers the way attempts have been made to formulate a working typology of movement. Now let us move to the topic developing a typology of social movement. Scholars in the field have attempted on different grounds at developing a typology of movements. Some illustrative attempts can be described here. As reported by the Oman in his ICSSR, a survey report of 1969 to 1979, MSA Rao makes a distinction between three levels of conflicts and social structural changes in society, and correspondingly arrives at the conception of three types of social movements, namely reformist, transformative, and revolutionary. Reform movements, according to Rao, bring about partial changes in the value paradigm of society. The transformative usher in the middle level social structural changes. The revolutionary movements, on the other hand, bring about radical changes in the totality of social and cultural systems of society. Ghanshyam Shah, on the basis of the socio-economic characteristics of the participants and the nature of social issues involved, presents 8 types of social movements in India. These types are peasant movement, tribal movement, Dalit movement, backward class caste movement, women movement, students movement, middle class movement, and finally the industrial working class movement. T.K. Oman offers a threefold classification of movements. His classificatory scheme is based on the way society responds to the situation of social strain. Oman's analysis reflects some degree of methodological realism when he observes that none of the attempts made so far is comprehensive enough to encapsulate all varieties of movement found in India. It need to be realized that all typologies and classifications are provisional and tentative in nature. In fact, there exists an underlying hypothesis or a theory in light of which grounds of character classifications is decided. Typologies and classifications are tools to help meeting the theoretical requirements of a particular study at hand and to illuminate the nature of empirical realities. Rajendra Singh, in his endeavor to develop a relatively more dependable model of classification of social movements into different types, has developed a set of three interrelated indicators or questions. These are as presented below. What were or are the foci of the movements? The answer of this question would require identify the axial and central issue at the stake of the movement. It would generally refers to the aims, objective or issues involved in the movement, such as those relating to forest and tribes, land and its produce, communal, gender, religious, ecological and environment, industrial workers, etc., around which a protesting or angry collectivity of men and women comes into being. The second one is who are the people who are participating in the movement. This question relates to the structure of membership of the people and to their participation in the movement. The identity of the participants belonging to a specific section of society, class, caste, gender or religion or even a region who rise to share the foci or the objectives of the mobilized collectivity and decide to swim or sink together. helps in narrowing down the process of classification to locating a more dependable specific type of movement. And finally, what is the nature of the advisory group or institution or social practice against whom the movement is launched? The identification of the target group or the enemies of people, caste, community, gender, etc. of the movement. The three indicators who, what, for, and against whom constitute a triangular paradigm of classification of movements into different types such as peasant, tribal, Dalit, women, ecology, workers, subnationalist, etc. However, the above classificatory model has also to take into account the changing nature of contemporary Indian society. In the contemporary setting, India's social and economic character seems to be defined by its movement from the incomplete and immature modernity and development to an equally incomplete and immature post-modernity. The mutually odd combination of these two types of movement tend to characterize the historico-specific representation of the Indian society. By the phrase representation of society, we mean the system of people's ideologies, ideas, and concepts, their myths, legends, and history, their conception of past, present, and future, their defeats, successes, aspirations, and struggles. There has been discussions on different types of movements such as old movements, alternative movements, classical movements, new movements, micro movements, proto movements, or even as Doreen conceptualizes beyond social movements. Before we elaborate on the typologies of movements, it is appropriate that a brief discussion on the conception of social movement be presented at this juncture. It may be realized that social movements are not made. They cannot be artificially invented. Movements are always the natural expression of conflictual contents of society that lies at the core of its structure. The very making of society and social structure, the process of stratification of population into unequal stratum, caste, class, and occupational groups are based essentially on the principle of inequality. The distribution of social values such as material resources, power, prestige, honor, etc., carry the natural condition of conflict in them. The birth of rich and poor, weak and strong, powerful and powerless, the dominant and the dominated in society are the perennial and escapable social realities conducive to producing relative social deprivation, conflict, and opposition among different groups and segments in society. It has been mentioned somewhere that movements are not made, much less they are launched or led by leaders. Whenever opportunities permit or human detachment exhausts the limit of human preservance, movements decoil or unfold automatically and reveals themselves in the actions of awakened conflictual consciousness of the collectivity. In the light of the above observations, one can easily identify some of the normal type of social movements. These are universalism, relativism, social optimism, and the idea of self-renewal and self-actualization. Here we want to close this lecture. Thanks for listening.